Good morning. This is a little short week, obviously, because the first day of the week being the state of the state and then moving on to snow day yesterday. So don't have a lot to report other than just excited about the momentum that we had carrying over from last year. Continue to have great conversations with both the governor and the speaker about working together to continue the momentum and continue to build on that momentum. Committee work was light, to say the least, this week. Hopefully that will start to pick up starting Monday, and we will see a lot more substantive action in the committees in the coming weeks. Just got done visiting with the Pages. They had a blast throwing snowballs at each other yesterday. I kind of wish that I would have gone to the courtyard to have the fight with them. So, but I'm going to open up to questions. I don't have a whole lot to say beyond that.
Redistricting petition got refiled this morning. Your thoughts on that? I know you're opposed to it. They say it's local money. It's not out of state money.
Yeah. I think the leader even said he hadn't heard of who Eric Holder was, which shocked me. It's a national movement. I don't know where their exact money is coming in. There's a lot of Democrat activists who have run Democrat campaigns that are behind it. A couple Republicans as well, but it would be detrimental to my constituents. It would be detrimental to Oklahoma. I have not read the refiled petition. Obviously got thrown out on gist, so I'm interested to see what they've changed beyond the gist. I'm glad the court found that the gist was not an accurate representation of what was contained in the state question. It's very dangerous. That state question has a lot of substantive change and puts all the power and authority really in one person, not just one branch. It completely obliterates checks and balances and push all the power in whoever the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is. And I don't think that's a position the Supreme Court has ever envisioned being in, and I hope that we are able to defeat it.
Today, a couple hundred medical marijuana advocates are out here. They don't want the state question watered down. They believe that the Unity Bill had some flaws, such as sensitive positions where you would be able to participate in the program. What would you say to those folks? Is there an effort to sort of rein in the state question or alter it?
You know, everything we have done heretofore and what we'll continue to do is make sure the will of the people is carried out. The vote was overwhelming, and as I told you all during the interim last year, we planned on passing legislation to clarify some things. The safety-sensitive positions was extremely important that we got into law. The state question didn't envision that, and that's one of the shortcomings of a lot of state questions is they don't envision funding mechanisms, they don't envision consequences that when it goes through a legislative process, hopefully it's a more robust discussion on all the downsides. I don't believe we as a legislature have done anything that has gone against the will of the Oklahoma voter when it comes to medical marijuana.
Do we need more legislation governing that industry?
You know, I'll look at the legislation on its merits. I have still have to get through all the legislation myself. I have not encountered the bills that are dealing with that right now, so I'll have to look at it, and maybe by next Monday when I have a press availability, I'll have more information on that.
Can you talk about, in the State of the State speech, Governor Stitt talked about consolidating some state agencies. Can you talk specifically about, I know you hinted earlier in the week that you're excited about that. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, and I think perhaps I wasn't clear enough. My excitement is that, but it's also what he talked about on regulations and administrative code. That was what I was trying to talk about more on the red tape, to make sure that for every new rule we have, we do away with 2 rules. I think that's extremely important. If you look through the administrative code that has a very direct impact on many people's personal lives, their business, the industry, it's cumbersome. And a lot of times it's just been built up organically over the years with no thorough analysis of if we change this rule, how's it going to impact previous rules passed. So I was excited about that. I am the author, per the governor's request, on a bill to consolidate ODOT and Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. We need to make sure we get things right. There's some funding mechanisms that are at play there that I want to make sure that anything we do does not jeopardize the monies we receive for roads.
What about it seems like the pendulum sort of swifts one way When I got out here in the 94 session, they were talking about breaking out OJA from DHS, and because it was just too unwieldy. I mean, do you have concerns that perhaps some of these consolidation proposals made in the state haven't been completely vetted? I mean, those are some significant changes the governor has proposed.
They're significant. Some of them are overdue. Study is needed on some. We have an old timers dinner of senators every other year, which is one of my favorite things I get to do. I got to MC it last time, and one of the members came up to me, and I don't recall his name, but he served in the legislature in the 1960s. And his only question to me was, Senator, are you in the process of packing agencies together or cracking them up? The pendulum swings back and forth every decade. And so I think your point is well taken. We never get that balance exactly right, and we need to make sure we look every year, is that pendulum back in the middle? And I think that consolidating some of these agencies has a lot of merit. We need to look through all the details and make sure that we don't have any unintended
What
consequences.
about pardon parole board if you basically keep your constitutional appointees, but you move the functions into DOC? Are you at all concerned that there's a conflict? You've got the fox guard and the hen house. As soon as DOC gets full, it's going to make these inmates look a lot more palatable for release.
I've heard that criticism. I need to look at the actual mechanics of how it works. I think this governor, and I know this pro tem, is very committed to continuing criminal justice reform. We want to make sure that you have that balance with public safety, though, and that's always that pendulum again. How do you balance that pendulum? It was obviously swayed too far on the side of tough on crime and not getting drug treatment, not getting mental health treatment. So we're swinging that back, but we've always be cognizant that we can go too far. And I'll look at that on its own merits. I have not even seen language on that yet.
What do you think of the governor's plan? It sounds like he's planning on tapping into savings to pay the deficit that's going to be left by tribal gaming exclusivity fees. What do you think of that?
I'm sorry, I am easily distracted, and I did not hear your question. Will you repeat that? I know it's deal with tribal gaming and the funding. I
It
apologize.
doesn't sound like the governor's planning on spending the exclusivity revenue that comes in, and he's going to need to find another source to make up
Yes.
that for mental health and also for public schools. I mean, what do you think of that issue?
I will tell you that the Senate is absolutely committed to making sure that public education is not harmed anyway, as we're having the continuing debate on whether or not the compacts go on. I think the governor's position, well, I'll let the governor speak for himself. He does have in his proposal that we'll use some monies to offset that money and basically put the gaming revenues, if they come in, into escrow, essentially. I want to make sure that we keep our public schools whole, and so we'll work with him to see how we do that.
The governor called in his State of the State speech on his Medicaid plan for raising the shop fee. I'm just curious, where is your caucus on that, and is that going to require a 3/4 vote?
You know, it's an interesting question. The shop fee, when I first heard of it, was early on in my legislative service, and the hospitals were out here pushing it really hard. I voted against it, the original, but we have amended it over the years to say up to 4%. We're currently at 2.8%. I want to look to see, is legislative action actually required? I've asked for documentation on that. I don't know if I've received it. I'm sure I have. I just haven't had a chance to review it. I don't know where our caucus stands on moving to 4%, just saying rather than up to 4, just changing it to 4. That's a discussion we'll be having in the coming days.
Can you, next week, a bunch of folks are going to descend on the Capitol calling for the abolishment of abortion in Oklahoma. And I know last year you had some hesitancies with SB 13. I imagine they're still going to be pushing that. Do you still have some hesitancies with that bill?
Well, first off, I agree with abolishing abortion. If I thought that Senate Bill 13 would save a single human life, I would be on board fully. I still am of the mind that it's fatally flawed, and I believe that in large part that's a bill to secede from the Union more than it is to save lives. When you look at the back half of that bill, it is all about not allowing any representative of the state of Oklahoma to appear in federal court to defend the law, to say that we as a state declare it's constitutional, therefore it is constitutional, which is, in my mind, circular logic that will be thrown out immediately. I am completely fine with challenging the current court precedent on abortion. Right now, they determine it by viability, and they generally are around 20 weeks. I would like to move that needle to save human lives, and I am absolutely committed to challenging the current precedent, but I want to do it in such a way that's consistent with the U.S. Constitution. And I believe Senate Bill 13 is much more focused on quasi-secession rather than saving human life.
So you don't want Senate Bill 13 to get a hearing or move on?
I am still opposed to Senate Bill 13 unless it's amended. I also believe in the sanctity of the mother's life. And so I have requested that bills that deal with saving human life save human life, including the unborn baby, that I believe life starts at conception. And I believe that the mother who's carrying that baby sometimes, in certain medical scenarios, very limited, but there are certain medical scenarios where both lives will expire absent medical intervention. And so I am a huge believer in the sanctity of the unborn life. I'm an equal huge believer in the sanctity of the mother's life who's carrying that baby.
The House is currently debating a bill that would essentially make it a crime for doctors to perform abortions or take away their license. I mean, is the Senate going to give that any hearing?
You know, I need to look at it on its merits. I heard there was some amendments. I don't know if those amendments prevailed or if they were withdrawn. Is that House Bill 1182? Is that what you're referring to?
The amendment was adopted.
It was adopted. So did the amendment, did it redefine what health meant, or did it take out women's health?
I'll it again because I don't want to miss it.
Well, until I see it on eCapital, I won't have any comment. No, I will review that myself. I knew that they were desiring to advance that off the floor this week. We had been in communication. If it saves human life, I will be for it. And if it challenges the current court precedent without violating the U.S. Constitution, I will be for it.
Do you know when Rose Day will be rescheduled, or if it will?
You know, I don't know. That's a hard thing to get together. I've talked to Tony via text messaging. He's wanting to redo it or postpone it, reschedule it. I just don't know, pulling all that many people together and speakers. You had a national speaker. So that's a good question for Tony. I don't know. I remain committed as the leader of the Senate to accommodate him and his group if he needs it. I'm sure the House is more than willing to accommodate him as well, so we'll just have to work around schedules. All right. Thank you very much.